Hey guys, how's it going? I wanted to make a quick video talking about the problem of evil, and this is just an argument against the existence of a good God. So it usually goes something like this: look at all the evil in the world. There's no way a good, loving God would allow any of it to happen. Um, and there's some confusion, I think, about how to properly answer this problem, or at least I think not confusion, but a lack of clarity and direction for how to approach this problem. Because I'll hear someone say, look at the Holocaust as an example of an evil that a good God wouldn't allow. And there's an answer to that, which is, well, maybe a good God would have sufficient reason to create people with free will. And if he has that, well, people could do whatever they want with their free will, and sometimes people doing bad things might be a necessary outcome of that. But then it's like, all right, let's just say that answers the problem. For now, let's just assume that. The follow-up question is, well, what about all the other cases, right? Because there's a lot of suffering in the world that's not due to human free will. So when I usually hear the problem of evil and people trying to answer it, it's not really categorized very thoroughly. What I mean by that is, like, if you've answered one problem of evil, how do you know that you've answered all the other problems of evil, if that makes sense? So if I've answered the problem of evil for evil created by human free will, there's a lot of other kinds of evil out there. How do I know that I've answered all of the other ones too? Like, I haven't. The way Aquinas gets around this is he says that the way he frames the problem lets you know that all the bases are covered. So the way Aquinas does it is he says something like an infinite good God would negate evil, something like that. So an infinity of something negates its opposite, or something like that. So, for example, if God is infinitely good, then there would be no evil. And so he answers that by saying that evil is a mode of non-being. And so this is all very abstract, but he's talking about all evil and infinite goodness. And so he kind of covers all his bases that way. I know I'm not doing it justice right here. I was kind of off the top of my head. But I've been thinking about a different way of framing this problem, and I'd like to just put it out there. Not super deeply developed yet. I want to put it out there and put it through the ringer and see how it does in the wild. But the way I've started to frame this problem in my mind is in terms of permanent psychological change versus temporary psychological change. So all suffering in the world really has to do with your conscious states, right? Just mental states of suffering, or the experience of evil. And so then you could create a binary, right? So either this is a temporary situation, so either the evil temporarily causes me to feel pain or discomfort or suffering, or there's something about that experience of evil which permanently alters my psychological state. And so there's your binary. Either it's permanent or it's not, and that covers all your bases in my mind. And so you can go about answering these two problems of evil. Now, why is this better? I've created two problems of evil now instead of one. But I think it's better when you frame a problem in a way that might lead to a cleaner solution for certain cases, and you just have to cover all the cases, and then you're good. And so that's the way I've been framing it. I think the temporary case, you could answer that. So what about cases of experiencing evil which are temporary, right? I experience some discomfort. I stub my toe. Why would a good God allow stupid suffering, or even temporary, animal suffering, bitten by mosquitoes, getting sick, a lot of times sicknesses really suck, but they don't permanently affect you psychologically. There's something to be said about God justifying that by becoming man himself. So the Christian answer to this problem is that God became man and stubbed his toes and got splinters and got crucified too. And he experienced extreme pain in some cases, which was, I assume his psychological state wasn't permanently changed by all these experiences, him being God and all. I would assume he's not permanently psychologically damaged, I hope. And so I think there was a quote by Nietzsche which said that when Jesus, when God became man in Jesus, that justified suffering. And I think that's only really true for temporary psychological damage or psychological suffering. I don't think that's the case with permanent psychological damage, because I would hope that's something that God doesn't experience, even as a man. And I think the case of permanent psychological damage, the way I've been reflecting on this and trying to answer this is with the concept of a sacrificial anode. What I mean by that is, this is an engineering term. A sacrificial anode is just a useless piece of metal that you put over your useful machinery. So when it goes out into the wild and gets exposed to these corrosive environments, the sacrificial anode is going to get eaten away by the corrosive environment, and your useful machinery is going to stay intact. So that's a sacrificial anode. And so when I think permanent psychological damage or psychological alteration, what I think is that there's a structure inside of you that experienced the suffering and just died. Like something collapsed inside of you. There was some structure that's permanently damaged or gone. And I think that structure must be a sacrificial anode. In other words, that previous psychological structure got sacrificed because it wasn't important in the first place. Example I have in my head, stupid example. There was a guy who got in a kind of fender bender, a little more than a fender bender kind of situation, and it wasn't his fault, but now he's got to be paying extra in car insurance for the rest of his life for something that wasn't his fault. Kind of a dumb example, but whatever was damaged in that scenario, which caused a permanent effect, so he's paying more in insurance for the rest of his life, and every paycheck that he has to pay extra for the insurance, it's just a reminder of the injustice in the world, right? So kind of a dumb example, but the argument would be whatever got damaged, and maybe it was his ego, God's saying, hey, that's not important. And a good God might have reason to allow that, to show someone, hey, I'm going to damage this structure because it's not important, and you're making it out to be more important than it has to be. And the only way for you to break free of that is to break it. This gets kind of dark kind of quick, but I wanted to put that out there because I think that's kind of how I've been framing it, and starting to know people who've experienced permanent psychological damage. I've been reflecting on it, and I think there's something to this, so I wanted to put it out there. So hopefully it gets refined more. Hopefully we start asking more detailed questions about, situations and doing the moral philosophy and whatnot. But I just wanted to put it out there, see what you guys think. Thanks for tuning in.